The Sermon on the Mount is and will always be the greatest sermon ever preached. The content is rich and leaves you questioning every area of your life. As I was reading it, I came to the end of the sermon and I saw some text that intrigued me. Matthew 7:28-29 says, "And when Jesus finished these sayings, the crowds were astonished at his teaching, for he was teaching them as one who had authority and not as their scribes." Notice that the crowds were astonished at Jesus' teaching. Why? Well, was it because of the entertainment value? Was Jesus funny? Was he charismatic, attractive? Wouldn't we think this because this is what draws us in today? The smoke, the lights, the beautiful buildings, the articulate speakers. If I'm honest, sadly, it's the carnal things that attract many to the building. I will say bluntly that there were no carnal means being used by Jesus that left these people astonished. Jesus was anything but entertaining. Usually when he finished preaching, people wanted to kill him, not applaud him. So what was it that left the crowds in awe? Well, the text tells us very clearly. The crowds were astonished at Jesus' teaching, not because of his entertainment value, but because he taught them as one who had authority. So the question I asked is, what is so astonishing about the teaching of Jesus? And not just in his day, but today. I have 3 reasons for you. First, the teaching of Jesus is astonishing because it offers authority to a world of autonomy. In other words, every one of us are free to make choices in this life. Jesus makes it very clear that there are only 2 choices when it comes to eternal life. Jesus basically says, it's my way or the highway. And as hard as that is to hear, Jesus is clear. There are only 2 religions. There is biblical Christianity that is taught by Jesus Christ and practiced by his followers. And then there's every other religion. And these each lead to 2 different eternal destinations. Heaven for those who follow Jesus, and hell for those who don't. Second, the teaching of Jesus is astonishing because it offers us absolute truth in a world that says knowledge, truth, and morality exist in relation to culture, society, or historical context. Look at what Jesus says in Matthew 7:24. "Everyone then who hears these words of mine and does them." Then we jump down a couple of verses to Matthew 7:27 and he says, "Everyone then who hears these words of mine and does not do them." You see the stark difference? Jesus is not saying some decided to hear my words and do them and some decided not to do them. But at the end of the day, your truth can be real truth too, so follow your feelings or whatever culture says. You see how dangerous it is to follow feelings and emotions and popular opinions? And here's how people try to reason this. People say Jesus was a very good man and a very good teacher and a very good prophet. He taught some good things that were wonderful, and we ought to incorporate those things that Jesus taught into our lives because they can be very beneficial to us. But that's not what Jesus teaches. Jesus says there's what I teach and then everything else. There's obedience to what I teach and lack thereof. And every single human, past, present, and future, falls into one category or the other. There's no middle ground here. You're either hearing and obeying what Jesus teaches, and according to him, the house will stand, and you are not, and the house will fall and crash. This is absolute, and it's a sure thing. Lastly, the teaching of Jesus is astonishing because it offers hardship to a world of ease. Notice that there is a man who hears Jesus' words and does them, and then the man who hears Jesus' words and doesn't do them. There's the house that stands and the house that falls. But in the midst of it, there's a phrase that's the same in both instances. Jesus says, "And the rain fell and the floods came and the winds blew and beat on that house." And that's repeated both times. Here's the truth. The rain comes whether you believe in Jesus or not. The floods rise whether you believe in Jesus or not. The winds beat on your house whether you believe in Jesus or not. This is far from a guarantee of a life of ease and comfort and security for those who follow Jesus. Jesus is not saying here, you follow me and I will give you the good life. Jesus teaches that following him is about the hard road, not the easy one. Those who live mundane, boring, uneventful Christian lives are the exception, not the rule. A genuine Christian's life is hard. Friends, let us never downplay the astonishing words and teachings of Christ. They were astonishing then. They are still astonishing today, as they will be tomorrow.